Algebra 1, 9.4, Part 2, Quadratic Functions and Equations. The zeros of a function is wherever the graph of the function intersects the x-axis. There's a spot, there's one, and this one has two different zeros. To find the zero of a quadratic function, which we're talking the parabola, y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Solve the equation and set the y equal to 0. But it needs to be equal to 0, ax squared plus bx plus c. And then we talked yesterday about the zero product property, that then if you have two factors, if you can factor it out, then one of the factors equals 0 or the other factor does. So just adding an extra step from yesterday's notes. Solve each equation by factoring. Now remember, the equation has to be equal to 0. So your first step here, we want to move the 6 over to the other side. But 6 is not a like term with x squared or x, so we just rewrite it. X squared minus x minus 6. And then we're going to break it down by factoring. So this is where we need to use a pencil to check which one works. You could do that x game if you want to factor it out. Multiply to be negative 6. Add to be negative 1. Okay, so we can figure out 3 and 2. And if we multiply it to be negative 1, we want the 3 to be the negative, and the 6 to, or the 2 to be the positive. So then we can set the factors each equal to 0 like we did yesterday. And add the 3. And over here we can subtract the 2. So those would be your two solutions. Okay, number 2. Now, first of all, this one has a typo. So go ahead and change your 4x to an 8x, negative 8x. So it's going to be x squared equals negative 8x minus 12. Right? From there, we can add the 8x to the other side and the 12, so that one side equals 0. So we have x squared minus plus 8x plus 12 equals 0. And we can now break it down, factor it out. So we've got x and x, multiplied to be 12 would be 6 and 2, plus and plus. Set them each equal to 0. So x equals negative 6, x equals negative 2. All right, number 4. This one is actually already set up for us because it equals 0. So we can begin just factoring it out and think about what multiplies to be 8x squared. This is the one you cannot do the x game on. You have to kind of find a different method to do it. So 8x squared was 4x, and 2x is what I'm going to try. And then we could try 3 and 5 and check if that gives us what we want. So we've got a 6x and a 20x. So we're trying to think, can 6x and 20x get me to negative 2x? No, that'd either be 26 or 14. So switch around the 3 and 5. We'll put 5 times the 2x and 4 times the 3. So again, we're trying to figure out, can that give me negative 2? Yep. It would be by making the 12 be the negative 1 and the 10 be positive. So we want the 3 to be the minus and the 4 to be the plus. So we have our factors, and now we need to take those factors and set them each equal to 0, just like we've been doing. So we've got 4x plus 5 equals 0, and 2x minus 3 equals 0. So we can move that 5 over and then divide by the 4. So x equals negative 5 over 4. If we do it with the second one, divide by 3, or divide by 2, x equals 3 over 2. So most often you're going to have two solutions. All right, why don't you guys go ahead and start on number 5. Think about what your first step would be. Pause the video if you need to. All right, so your first step should have been to subtract the 14 to both sides. There's no like terms on the left side. So it's 2x squared minus 3x minus 14. And then we're trying to factor it out. So 2x, we can go 2x times x would get us a 2x. How do we get to 14? Probably 2 and 7. It could be 14 and 1, but we could try it one way. And then try it the other way. Now, I could put my 2 right here, but remember that that one, it makes sense, because then I would have been able to factor a 2 out right away. So I'm probably going to try my 2 over here, and maybe my 7 here. So we've got 7x and 4x. There we go. I can get to negative 3 now by making my 7 negative and my 4 positive. Minus plus. So then we can set them both equal to 0. Okay, remember we've got to solve for x, so move the 7 over. And finally divide by 2. And then you can just leave it as an improper fraction. If you wanted to change it to 3.5, that's fine too. For the second one, we just subtract that 2. X equals negative 2. So x equals negative 2 or 7/2. All right, now sometimes you might not factor with the binomials right away. Sometimes there's the greatest common factor. So on number 6, think about, can I take something out of both of them? And then we see we can take a 5x out. So if I take a 5x out of the x squared, I'm just left with x. And the 5x out of the 35 plus 7. Still equal to 0. So then we can just set each of those factors equal to 0. And divide by 5. X equals 0. And then minus 7. X equals negative 7. All right, the last one, we need to first move the 12x to the other side. Now, this is a challenging one. I don't think I put any like this on the homework, but it's okay that we look at it. So we have 2x cubed plus 10x squared plus 12x equals 0. And then if we notice, they all have an x and a 2 in it, so we can take a 2x out front. If I do that, I'm left with x squared plus 5x plus 6. And then we can just factor that one further. So multiply to be 6 would be 3 and 2. Then we got plus and plus. So we can go set them each equal to 0. 2x equals 0. X plus 3 equals 0. X plus 2 equals 0. So we can divide by 2 and get x equals 0. Subtract the 3 and get x equals negative 3. And then finally subtract the 2 again to get x equals negative 2. So this one actually has 3 answers. Okay? All right. Now you can get started on the homework. Just make sure you show your work, show your factors, and then write your answers in the blanks.